What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we talk about everything fresh in entertainment. I am your host, Drew Brumfield, and today I am joined with the full crew today. I am joined by first Randy. How are you doing, Randy?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to be here.
It's glad to have you. And we are also joined again by Seth. Seth, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Drew. I'm so happy you picked the gay man first for Pride Month to introduce. That's very progressive of you.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, we got to
Congratulations,
represent.
you haven't been canceled.
Yeah, we got to represent. And then last but certainly not least, but not ahead of Randy, got to make sure you're still top dog, Randy. I want to make that clear. We also have Robert here. How you doing, Robert?
Doing perfectly average.
Yeah.
Middle of the line.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's how all of us heteros need to be on this month.
Yes.
Just average.
Yes, average. All hail King Randy, our local representation. Anyway, we are talking about all of these showcases with the past couple of, I'll just say weeks. Past couple of weeks, we have had Xbox Game Showcase, PS5 Showcase, Capcom Showcase, Ubisoft, and then, of course, the Summer Games Fest. And with a bunch of these, announcements and games coming out, and with it being halfway through the year, and we also just finished a podcast on looking back on 2023, we're going to do a podcast now about looking forward into the future of video games, talk about some of our most anticipated, games coming out, whether they've just been, especially with a lot of them that were just announced. So, with that, actually, I forgot to mention something. Before we get started, as many you fine listeners know, we have a TikTok and we've also been releasing many YouTube shorts. As of time of recording this podcast, we have just released our DMC one. So go check that out. It's us comparing DMC 1 to DMC 2 and really just us just complaining about DMC 2. So it's fun. It's funny. Go watch it. Go take a listen. It's hard to promote a Devil May Cry game when there's no news about that nowadays. So hope you guys enjoy that. But without further ado, and with the shameless plug out of the way, and I keep burping. I'm sorry. I keep pausing there. Goodness. With that shameless plug out of the way, let's just get us started. And Randy, I would normally start with you, but I'm going to start with Seth this time. Is that okay with you?
I'll allow it.
Okay, thanks. Seth, what is one of the games that you are excited about that was announced at one of the showcases?
Well, I'm going to pick a game to make sure that Randy speaks on this because, it's very important that Randy is able to speak on these topics. It is his month after all.
How long are we going to keep this? How long are we going to keep this bit going?
Don't patronize him.
Maybe we need to stop with this.
Seth, you've insulted him.
In all seriousness, I think the game I kind of want to start with is my biggest personal surprise of this showcase because it was a game that was announced that we knew was in the works, but I didn't think we'd be this close to seeing anything on it, and that was Star Wars Outlaws. That was announced at the Xbox showcase. It was like one of the first trailers I think that came up, like around like the third or fourth one. When I saw that it was Massive Entertainment and we knew they were working on some sort of open world Star Wars game pop up on like the screen, I'm like, oh, there's no way. They're not really going to be talking about the Star Wars game. And then immediately there's Empire ships, TIE fighters, a really slick, like kind of CGI cinematic kind of trailer. And then it ends with gameplay reveal tomorrow at Ubisoft Forward or whatever it's called. And it's like, cool. I tuned into that. The Forward was shit, to put it like pretty frankly. There was all kinds of technical issues. But man, the gameplay looked like it came pretty far along. Me personally, I'm excited by Star Wars Outlaws. The gameplay looks promising. Yes, it's an open world style game, but it doesn't look like the typical Ubisoft kind of formula with it. There was more of an emphasis on making it appear cinematic, like one of the films with like the black bars at the top and bottom of the thing. There was just a general lack of a HUD, which is something I appreciate. And this is just me personally, after playing through Jedi Survivor, I really hope that this game is leaning in more towards the criminal underworld because I'm getting a little bit burnt out with like always going back to the Empire this and Empire that. And while yes, this is still set between I believe Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So it's still dealing with Empire shit. I'm really hoping that their Empire are more like in the background. They're just like the GTA cops of this game. But I don't want to go on too long. I want to really quickly toss it over to Randy. Randy, you're our Star Wars resident nerd. What did you think of it?
It looked pretty great. I don't want to, like, initially I was actually a little worried because it's made by the developers who made The Division, which, from my understanding, was super successful. I played a little bit of the first one. I think I just played the open beta or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But I played a little bit of the first one, and I was like, wasn't super into it. So I was really worried that this was going to turn into is going to be The Division with a Star Wars clone, like your clones or stormtroopers versus rebels, whatever, skin over it. And I was like, I mean, yeah, that's cool, but I mean, and that the only reason I'm saying it's cool is because I'm a massive Star Wars dork. But I was really glad to see that it's another single player, looks to be very story driven, action adventure game. I heard someone say like Far Cry, but in Star Wars, but I haven't played a Far Cry game, and it still seems a little less so of that. It's like this third-person action game, and from my understanding, Far Cry has always been first-person. I'm hoping less standard, like I say, Far Cry / Assassin's Creed / generic open-world game where you climb a tower and unlock the map. We'll see about that. From what I've heard and what I've read so far, it is going to focus a lot on the criminal underworld. Like you'll have like the Red Sun Crimson Dawn
The Pikes.
The Pikes.
The Pikes.
They deliberately shout out the Pikes.
Yeah, the Pikes, and a couple other like underground syndicates. I was about to say Blue Suns, but no, that's Mass Effect.
I was about to say, I was like, when is he going to mention a Mass Effect game? I was waiting for it.
I was racking my brain. It's like, is Red Suns a Mass Effect faction? I had to make sure it wasn't for a
No,
second.
that's Blue Suns.
Yeah, he's making Blue Suns.
Thankfully. Okay.
Sun over Paradise, Metal Gear Rise.
I understood that one. I got that reference.
I understood that reference. All right, but yes, Randy,
Yeah.
yes, the gangs, yes, Randy.
But yeah, it seems to be very focused on that. You have another, I don't remember what the species is called, but it's the first time we're seeing it in
Oh, her rat
it's
thing.
like a new species. Yeah, her little
Rat thing.
like so I wouldn't don't call it a rat.
That's what me and Seth have been calling that.
It
calling
looks
for like a week.
actually.
It's
have
like
you
it's
guys
like
ever
an
heard of,
ocelot.
Yeah, or like an axolotl. Like what that
Axolotl,
is.
that's
It
what
looks
is.
delicious. I would eat it.
Oh,
I would.
That's Drew's words.
He
not
looks
mine. Let's
very.
point
He
that out.
looks like he would taste delicious.
he's
Come
so
on.
cute. Leave him alone.
Yes, so are rabbits, and they taste good.
Drew's views do not reflect the whole of the podcast.
Yes, they do. This
Drew
is my
just feels
podcast.
Listen, Drew just feels threatened by this new cute thing because he's afraid it's going to replace BD. So, that's why.
Nothing
he
will
has to,
replace
cash out.
BD. You take that back. You don't speak that evil. BD is best boy.
And
I
then
know your fears.
You can't eat BD.
also, it was pretty cool to see that they seem to have some sort of system, like reputation system, because pretty much when you get caught from stealing, like the gameplay showcase shows the main character Kay.
Hi.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think it's. I haven't really called
Oh, that's her name.
Yeah.
Wait, her name's actually Hay?
I don't. I would have to look that up. I forget what it is.
Okay, this game will
Anyway.
actually be a 10 out of 10 if there's if that's A, that's her name, and B, somebody when they first meet her, they go hey, and I'm like, all right,
Just go.
Oh no,
Hey.
Kay.
okay.
Anyway, I'm looking it up. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm looking it up as I'm going through this. Anyway, it starts off with her stealing this item of importance, or of value or whatever, that she's contracted to from one of the underground crime syndicates, and
The Pikes.
basically, oh, it is the Pikes.
It is the
Okay.
Pikes.
Anyway, she steals from them. She gets caught, and as she gets caught and she gets away, you'll see reputation decrease with the Pikes. And then she gets to the main location where she's the person who contracted her for this job, is there with some Empire officer. And the Empire officer is like, well, I mean, you just committed, quite a number of crimes there, but, I could, look the other way if you're smart. Basically, bribe or don't bribe her, which you actually get an option there.
Yeah.
In this case, they don't bribe her. And as you start to walk out this saloon or cantina, you see a news radio broadcast comes over, and it's just like, it's saying, "Oh, you're wanted by the Empire," and then it also says like Empire reputation down. Or actually, I don't know if it says Empire reputation down, but you become wanted. So like Seth was saying, hopefully they're kind of like this GTA police force. That's gonna come after you and whatnot. And you end up getting away, and you seem to seamlessly like take off into space and immediately into a space battle as like one transition. So hopefully space battle looks slow. It wasn't like Star Wars Squadrons.
Yeah, but it was like a
still
big ship that she was piloting. Like
So-
it looked pretty chunky.
Yeah,
So-
okay. So the main character is Kay Vess. So Kayvess. So Kay
That's
Vess.
My name would have been funnier.
Also, side note, she has this like droid companion that's an old BX commando droid, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is the acronym. Anyway, and I think it's ND5. It's kind of like a parody on Indiana Jones. Anyway, how'd they make a droid hot?
would track.
Is that just me?
Yeah.
Is it-
I'm sorry,
Is
mate.
the trench coat jacket?
Look, I
Did you see my retweets?
I saw your retweets and I'm just like, what are people like that horny? Like, goddamn, it's literally.
I mean,
I killed like 5 of these guys in Survivor, and like you put a trench coat on one and put a nice voice on it, and that's all it takes.
It's
I
all
mean,
it
like,
takes.
That's all it
Bar is
takes?
so low
the
for men.
man's got, or rather, the robot's got drip.
It's just a
There you
jacket.
go. It's all about the drip.
It's just a jacket.
Let's be
But-
honest. This robot has better drip than most of us here. So like, we
Alright.
just gotta respect it.
Accurate.
Yeah, because it was designed. It was made by. But someone else that I wanted to point out, in Randy's little like summary, is in the spaceship. It's not exactly. It is seamless, like her going from like dogfight into lightspeed. But something that Seth pointed out to me was in the actual trailer. You can see in the corner that like the player or whoever is like doing something, like punching in coordinates, like they're like manually selecting where they want to go as they're still flying. So it kind of
Yeah,
is cool
and
that you
also-
have to like do both at the same time.
Yeah,
It's
and
kind
also
of,
it
yeah.
grabs a little bit from Squadrons about having to manage your energy resources
Yeah.
as well. I saw to where like you can put more into shields or more into the hyperdrive, so that way it loads fast or like it calculates the route faster and you can get out of there quickly and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually remember them talking about that. That was like really neat. And I kind of want to jump back to like with that reputation system. So it seems like based on like that mission, like it's very clear that the mission starts off in stealth and then she gets caught, and that's where she's like, oh, the Pikes are not going to like this, and it's like Pike reputation down or whatever. So it seems like depending on what missions you take and how you accomplish them, it might raise or decrease your reputation with different criminal factions. And what I noticed whenever I rewatched the gameplay trailer was in the top left-hand corner, there's like an Imperial symbol kinda that flashes red after she talks with the like, after she basically like says, nah, I'm not taking the bribe. In fact, I'm going to put a gun in your face to the Imperial officer. And then she gets like the wanted thing, which by the way, it does a really cool thing where like the screen just flashes red and a big wanted like appears on it. It seems to be
Does
like,
it say wanted in Airbesh or like in the Star Wars Basic? I don't remember.
oh, I don't remember. I remember it turning to English. So maybe it starts off as that and then it translates over to like English or basic or whatever. Sorry, I'm not that big of a Star Wars nerd. Randy's definitely the bigger one.
Anyway,
But like, what it seems to be is like you'll have like different factions, like different criminal like gangs that you'll either work with or against or whatever, as like the primary system for the reputation system, and then you have the Empire as sort of like the policing force. So like kind of like in a GTA where you do enough bad things, the authorities will take notice and come after you. And guess what? You could kill these guys guilt free because like I don't know if you feel bad about like killing cops in a video game. You're not killing cops in a video game. You're now killing filthy imperialists. And,
space Nazis
in Star Wars. Yeah, space Nazis. So it's all cool. I like that. I think that's playing to the strengths of like this open world format. And another thing I want to point out is I like how smartly, at least the trailer showed, how the HUD is used in this, because a lot of Ubisoft games, especially with typical open worlds, is there's a lot of like objective markers and like here's a little quest log in your left hand corner, go here, do this. And this game didn't really have a lot of that, and I like just how clean everything was. It feels like Ubisoft understands like this is a Star Wars property. We have to take this seriously. We can't just put this through the typical Ubisoft formula of open worlds and be done with it. And where I noticed it best was the character models are some of the best I've seen in any Ubisoft game here. Like during like the cutscene. Now, granted, of course, this is just a presentation and trailer. Of course, they could have modified it, and they're trying to put their best foot forward here. But I like the look of the character models for the most part.
So
especially
is this studio like a first party like Ubisoft owned studio, or do they like contract this out?
They are owned by Ubisoft. Massive Entertainment have done like, and the only games they've really worked on is Division. But one of the things they kind of mentioned during the presentation was that like, even though Massive is the one leading the fight on this game, they did mention that a bunch of other studios, pretty much all the other Ubisoft studios have some form of support for this game. Like they lend a hand. So it definitely screams to me that Ubisoft are like, because it's Star Wars, it's like, we cannot fuck this up. We have to have all hands on deck on this game.
They don't want to do like what EA did with Star Wars. They don't want like
where they
one of
piddled
those
around
fiascos.
and released like what, 5 games for 10 years.
Yeah.
I say that
most of them.
Game development is hard. Thank you, game developers, for
but
making
also
games. But
it's not made easier when your publisher is acting like a moron. So
yeah, and canceling your titles and stuff.
Yeah.
I still
Well, it takes
I
some
still
competence
wish for
management.
that Project Ragtag. Anyway, before we
Yeah.
go on a whole tangent, let's continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I will say my one complaint from this trailer, and I promise after this, like I'm gonna stop taking over and let you guys get back.
I was like, we
do
have a lot of
think
games
the
to talk
shooting-
about.
Yeah. The one thing that kind of bothered me a bit about this trailer was the shooting combat. The animations for when people were getting hit was a little stiff. Like they didn't really have much reaction to getting hit with a blaster shot.
Yeah.
And granted, like thankfully, it's
Are you
not like
talking
an
the
RPG.
main character or just other
The
enemies?
enemies that she
Enemies,
was
okay.
firing at, and granted, thankfully, it doesn't look like an RPG thing where it's like, oh, everything's like a bullet sponge. There were no like damage numbers. There's no gear
Yeah,
shown
still.
off here, which I'm thankful for. But it was like she would put 1 or 2 shots in them, and they wouldn't really react until they died to the shot. And it just, in my opinion, it's like that could be cleaned up. There should be some sort of like hit stun reaction there. But other than that, the gameplay looks promising, and it's a lot more than I was expecting for a game that we just a few weeks ago had no idea what it was about.
Yeah. It's definitely like a different change from like Survivor and like really what we've been getting for Jedi games for a while, Star Wars game, which has been like very Jedi like focused, like big Empire stuff. Like it's been a very long time since we've had anything like bounty hunter related, and like my kind of biggest hope for this is this kind of gives the same like feeling or vibes that like the Mandalorian show give, where it's like you're a humble bounty hunter trying to like make their way in the world. Robert will appreciate that reference. And you know you're doing odd jobs just to like survive and outrun the Empire, and I really hope it doesn't turn like she's also a Jedi at the end. I'm like, that would kind of ruin it for me.
That would
That would
suck.
feel
Don't do
really
that.
bad.
It's called Star Wars Outlaws. Let's keep it in the criminal
Seth,
underworld.
I
please.
understand this. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with
oh,
you.
Yeah,
I'm just like
This energy
you
out
guys-
into the world.
Yeah.
if you're calling the Star Wars Outlaws, there better not be like, oh, she's suddenly like a Jedi or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like we don't need that shit.
Or force sensitive, like
She's-
at all.
yeah.
That's
No,
such a
please
cool thing
don't.
about like just Han Solo. It's just a dude,
He's just a dude.
and I want the same thing for Kay.
Yeah.
It's just a person. It's
Just
just
a
a girl
girl.
hanging out.
Just a girl hanging
Gotta
out
be-
with her delicious
A girl
tasting
with
rat
her
creature
robot and her pet.
and her
Yeah.
and apparently very attractive robot friend. I guess.
I mean,
The dripped out
it's
robot.
a drip.
Like, is that what it is? Is it you put a trench?
It's the
If
drip.
I put a trench coat and a sexy voice on a mailbox, people would call it sexy.
I don't know about that. I mean, this
Someone
has
will
like
find a way.
finds a way.
Dude, I think the important thing is like genetics is great, but sometimes drip rules out genetics.
Yeah. I remember seeing a tweet just like, "Men, what's stopping you from looking like this?" And
Hey.
someone just replied, "Flesh."
Yeah, flesh. That's
My
the problem.
body.
God.
This prison made of flesh.
Yeah.
Robots are stealing our women.
In the words of Kylo Ren, I want to be free of this pain.
I want to be free of this.
It's flesh.
Okay, but that's enough about Jedi. Oh my god, I keep wanting to say
Star Wars
Jedi.
Outlaws.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star
we could
Wars.
probably like if they do another like showcase of this, or when the game's about to come out, I could see us doing its own podcast. I'm not promising anything, viewers. But,
Maybe,
you know,
maybe
I'd
like
be down
when
to talk about it.
maybe
more.
like when it comes out and like maybe we like played it for a while and it's like it's the worst fucking thing since unsliced bread. It's just awful.
fucked up again.
Yeah.
Please.
It's
It's-
the worst
it's-
thing since Attack of the Clones.
It's Unity Part 2. Anyway, so continuing forward, I'm gonna cut anyone off before they can comment on what I just said. There is a bunch of other things shown off, and I will go next, and I'll be quick because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that's gonna talk about this, but that's fine. I just want to get it out of the way. That is one of my favorite fighting game series. You know, like you guys have like kind of got into it, but like obviously like this is like what I get into the most is the Mortal Kombat 1, what was released at Summer Games Fest, and not just an announcement. We finally see gameplay. This game has been getting teased and hinted at by Ed Boon on his Twitter for so long, and finally we get to see it.
My
And
guy walks up there with Jeff and he's like, "All right, it's time."
it is time. We see gameplay and like the kind of like big thing about this game is I'll talk about it like because I might be having a little short about Mortal Kombat 11 in the future, but MK11 was like very very restrictive in both your movement, in the combos, and even like its big thing like customization. It really was restricted in that too. So like the big thing with this one is like characters, there's no more variation system. We're done with that. There's no more of that. Characters are full characters now. They have their full kits every single time you pick them. And combos are now like totally different and wild. People got air juggles, people smacking them up and like hit them 16 times there, smack them back down, keep on hitting them. And then the very big thing with this game is the cameo, spelled with a K, system where you get a second dude to come in. It's not a tag game. You can't send them in to fight for you, but they can do assist, hit them, throw the opponent, and it's really at first you're just like, oh, it's just assist, and in previous games they've had stuff like that before. Like in MK11, you just pushed a button and they'll come and do something. But after like watching the gameplay of it and like watching a lot of the behind the scenes, like no, they really implemented into everything. Like if your assist meter's up and you do a forward throw, it'll do a special different animation. You can have special fatalities with your partner. There's like different interactions depending on who you pick. So it's actually really cool. And also you have different supers which change a lot, which like in theory would mean like a lot of variation between like who you pick as your partner. So it's really cool and really interesting. Robert, you're kind of the other like fighting game person with this. Did you get to see any like the Mortal Kombat stuff? Has it intrigued you at all, or?
It was nice to look at. I'm not really much of like an NRS guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm just the way like those games play never really quite like clicks with me.
Fair.
But no, it looks like a really fun game. I might try it if it goes on like Game Pass or something.
I'm sure.
But I don't know if I'll go out of my way to get it. But I think I remember Maximilian dude talking about how some of the mechanics are like Marvel versus Capcom 1, like how they're doing like the cameo system.
Yeah, kind of like the tag based thing. Like you can send your person in to like as like kind of like your breaker to like smack them out of combos. But if it's blocked,
Yeah, I like that they want to make it a little more free flowy with the combo system.
Yeah.
That kind of just feels like what a lot of like modern fighting games are really trying to push to do. Like
Yeah.
you saw that with Guilty Gear Strive, where they changed up the Roman cancel system just a little bit, to where you have like 4 or
Yeah.
5 different types of Roman canceling. You got Street Fighter 6 with like the drive gauge, which
Yeah.
I think is a almost ingenious like mechanic, honestly.
Oh, the drive gauge is
Because
is
the amount of
fantastic,
things
yeah.
you can do with that is
Yeah.
really cool.
It's everything.
So
it's your
I-
defensive moves. It's your offensive moves. You can impact. You can use to dash faster. It's everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I like that NRS is kind of having their own spin on okay,
Yeah.
how can we kind of open this up without it not feeling like Mortal Kombat?
Well, it's interesting that like this is happening in like because before this, with when both MK11 came out and Street Fighter 5, both those games were heavily criticized because they took things away from the characters. Like Ken couldn't do his dash unless he used like the V trigger thing. Scorpion had to use meter to extend combos with the spear. Like everything was they were limiting players on it to be kind of more like grounded footsie based. And I feel like especially when Strive came out, because Strive with its whole Roman cancel system like changed everything. Now they're doing it where okay, we messed up, we overcorrected. Let's give them all the freedom in the world now. Let's with the drive gauge, yeah, it affects everything. Your block, your dash, you can impact people with it. It's a lot. And then with this kind of seems like Mortal Kombat's answer was like, we're gonna make combos fun, cool, interesting, interactive, and like way more in depth than like MK11. Which honestly, MK11 was like really limited in the fact like you could play a character for a day and be like, yeah, I know everything about him. And that was kind of it. They did one thing really well, but that was it. There wasn't much deep dive you can get into. And it looks like
kind of my issue with systems like that where it's like okay, you can customize like moves and supers and stuff.
Yeah.
People are just gonna find the optimal one and then nobody's gonna run the other ones.
Yeah.
Or it could just be a mechanic people don't interact with anyways. Like Super Smash Bros. 4, people don't remember this, but there were custom moves for all the characters. Like you could change their specials, but you had to unlock all of them. So if you wanted to unlock them, it was just a pain in the ass to get everything. And then no one really played them anyways because why go through that effort?
Yeah, that was the
So
problem
it's
with
like-
MK11. It's just like there were certain moves that were just like better, and so people didn't play the others.
Yeah, so some stuff would be situational, but then other stuff is like so good that why would you not use it?
Yeah. So that's why I'm
So
glad
it's-
going forward with MK1, everyone has full move sets now. There's still there still is a little bit of customization with like your assist partner, but still though like Sub-Zero now has a dive kick. He has his clone back and ice ball and like 2 other new moves. And it's been like there's been now like so many games in a row now where Sub-Zero really only had like 3 special moves and that was it. So it's really cool to see like them kind of deep dive. Also, last thing I'll bring up with Mortal Kombat is finally my boy Kenshi is back, looking as cool as ever in the Yakuza. He's my favorite Mortal Kombat character. So the fact that like this game very much was speaking to me with the fact that 2 of the characters that show up was like obviously Sub-Zero because he has to be in there. He's one of my favorites, and the fact that they're like also Kenshi's back really felt like all right, this is speaking to me. So I'm glad that's
So
back.
like, I don't follow like the storyline of Mortal Kombat, but isn't like this like the second time they kind of like rebooted the?
Oh no, this is like the
franchise?
4th time they've rebooted it. No, that's
Because
not.
it's like they
Yeah.
rebooted
No,
it.
no,
I know
so-
they rebooted it with 9.
That is like
And now they're
yeah,
rebooting
that
it
was a
again.
while ago. So
Yeah, because
Mortal
like, I
Kombat.
think something happened in like the story and like 11's DLC.
No. This has been
whereas,
like this was set up very well in 11. I'll give credit. 11's story is really good. Like it's actually very good, and they do set this up quite well. But yeah, because originally everything got reset in like one of the Armageddon like 3D games, but that was a mess. So they kind of reset things in 9, which was back in like, what was that, like 2015 or something? So like a while ago, and now they're kind of back, and they're like, well, we've really taken this story as far as we can go, which I agree with. Where they were, it was like, it would have been weird to keep going from this. And so they were like, all right, let's do it all again, but everything new. Like, Raiden's not the main guy anymore. Like, Raiden's just a regular guy. He's not a Thunder God anymore. Liu Kang's now the god. And it's the first Mortal Kombat tournament. There hasn't been one before this. And normally in the game, it's like, this is the last one before Earthrealm's destroyed, yada yada. Characters don't know each other. A lot of character backstories are changed. Sub-Zero and Scorpion are now brothers. Like, they're from the same clan. So that'll be interesting to see where that develops. It's also now the original Sub-Zero, like the evil one. So, again, see, interesting. And similar thing, Katana and Mileena, who normally Mileena's like a clone, are actual sisters, and they don't hate each other at the start. They're actually legit trying to help each other. And Katana's like, look, you have to kind of hide the teeth thing because people get scared by it, and if they get scared by it, they're not going to accept you as the ruler. So, like, Katana is actually actively trying to make Mileena be the ruler of this world and not herself. So it is very interesting, and also again with Kenshi's in the Yakuza and now like a crime boss, which he's always been like a very like honorable like samurai type character. So it's very interesting to see everyone like kind of similar but like very different. Because even when they rebooted it back in 9, yes, they rebooted it, but all like Liu Kang was still Liu Kang. He's still the chosen one. Raiden's still the regular guy. Everyone's still the same character you knew. This one, it's like they're actually changing people's backstory. So it'll be interesting, kind of like to see where they take with this. That was a very long answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
My fault. I got into the lore. But that's enough about Mortal Kombat 1. I'm super excited about it.
I do want to add to this. Just because I don't really have anything to add to it. I don't really play many of the Mortal Kombat games. But I will say, one of the things I'm kind of impressed by is, this is going to sound like a backhanded thing, but it's not. This is a compliment. This game, visually, doesn't seem all that different from MK11. But I mean that in the sense that, like, the graphical fidelity of 11 was already insanely high. That this new one doesn't really seem that big of a step up, but I think that's more of a testament to how good that
MK11, the previous game was.
Yeah. And I mean, with not having to focus on graphics and whatnot, it allowed them to focus on like new mechanics and like what they're changing in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And well, it's still wild too that like even like I mean, like, the new Street Fighter game looks good, and a lot of fighting games look good. This is still, even without being, like, a super big improvement on the last one, still going to be the best-looking fighting game. Like, hands down. MK11 could re-come out today and still be the best-looking fighting game, and that game came out, like, 2 years ago.
2019. Yeah, 2019.
Oh, it came out 2019.
Like 4 years ago.
So, 4 years ago, and it still would look better, which just kind of shows you how, like, what happens when a studio with a big budget gets a fighting game. Like, they can make it look really good.
That's what I was about to add too. Like seeing seeing this game get announced was kind of surreal, because it's like, man, didn't MK11 just came out and you just look up, it's like, oh my god, it's definitely been like a few years. And I think the reason why is, one, of course I haven't played it, but also it's because visually the game just still looks insane. And I mean, that's not, like you said, that's not really surprising from NetherRealm, considering, like, even Injustice 2, which came out in, 2017, still looks very good by today's standards. Yeah. It still looks better than most of the games today.
Yep. Nah, that's gosh. I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm glad that we're in this, because there was a very dry period for fighting games for a very long time after MK11 came out. So I'm glad that, like, in 1 year, Street Fighter 6 has come out. It's been super fun to play. Mortal Kombat's about to come out in September. And now Tekken 8 should be coming out.
I'm biding my time for Tekken. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, sorry, that's more.
Tekken was like my real like first like. I really like fighting games kind of game.
See, like that's like Mortal Kombat and Injustice for me, and so that's Tekken for you. So the fact that like all these like the big three of fighting games, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken, are all kind of like around relatively the same time is wild to me. And they all look super cool and each have super different like mechanics that they're all pushing forward. So that's super cool. Really exciting to be a fighting game fan in this year. So moving forward, because now we've only talked about 2 games so far, and I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about. I'm going to toss it over to Randy. Randy, what was something that was showcased off for you? Either, more gameplay reveal of it or just something that was just announced in general.
Did you toss it to Randy first or Seth?
Tossed it to Seth first. Seth just immediately threw it to Randy.
Yeah, I did specifically pick one that I know Randy could talk about.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Robert, you're next, I promise.
So, a game that, instead of starting with the game that I think everyone would immediately think for me to talk about, I'm actually going to it's still by Ubisoft, but Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown looks really cool. I've never played a Prince of Persia game, but it's this, initially I was like, okay, cool. I saw just through the trailers, I wasn't super interested in it. And then they showed gameplay, and I was like, all right, I fucks with this. This is cool. So it's this 2D action adventure. Looks like it's going to have some Metroidvania elements of unlocking abilities and then going back to a place you were before, now that you can go there. You still have, with the classic Prince of Persia, time abilities, but now you have this you can do it in combat, which I'm sure you could do in previous games, but I've never played a previous game for the Prince of Persia games. But it has this really cool being able to use the time powers as a dodge ability. So having I saw one where he was fighting this serpent, this massive serpent that was shooting a laser down into the ground, and before it started the laser, because it has kind of a wind up, he placed where he wanted to go, shot it with an arrow, ran away from the laser to where it's now behind him as he's running towards the right side of the screen, activates the time power, and it basically shifts him back to that previous location where he set on the opposite side of the laser and shoots the serpent again. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And they show a couple other really cool combos off using these abilities. And it's a very good looking game. I think it's stylized well. And it looks really fun. So
interesting.
I was watching this wow, this is actually really cool. I remember seeing people were kind of getting pissy about it. It's oh,
yeah.
This is Prince of Persia.
This isn't Prince of Persia. You don't play as the prince.
It's guys, if you watched if you knew anything about Prince of Persia, it started out as this kind of game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's fun. I just want to hate on the fans a bit real quickly.
It's
Prince
Ubisoft fans. We always find something to bitch about. Anyway, continue.
I have that. Weirdly enough, I had that in my notes somewhere. Hold on, let me find it real quick. It was under the surprise AC Mirage section.
This is how you know a joke's really good. He wrote it down.
I have a note here I wrote from earlier that says, "Not going to be overly harsh on it. AC fans will never be pleased." So
now just replace AC with Prince of Persia fans, and there's the joke.
And so all the people, and I understand they grew up with Sands of Time. It's a 3D platforming type game that Prince of Persia was and became from there. It's I understand that's the most popular iteration, but it's this isn't my Prince of Persia. What have they done? This is a real Prince of Persia game. If you go back to the OG ones, like Robert said, the first couple, they were 2D platforming games. If anything, this is the most return to roots Prince of Persia game we've seen ever. So it's weird that people just have selective memories and they're little shits. Yeah. And I think And I think it also, like, there was some other icky stuff. It's just like, ew, I don't feel immersed in this because they're using rap music in like the fucking trailer. It's just like, stop being a big fucking baby.
They're going to forget about the trailer when the game comes out, you know?
Yeah. I think, and I agree with Randy. I like the visuals, the art style of it. I think it's one of the more interesting art design wise that Ubisoft has put out in quite a while. I also think it's part of this like sort of renaissance of 2.5D games that we've been seeing since Dread came out like a few years ago. So I'm happy to see that trend continue.
But it looks really interesting. I'm excited for that. That was something that I wasn't expecting to be excited for, but I got pretty excited for watching gameplay for it. And now back to what we brought up earlier, and it actually works very well considering AC1 was going to be a Prince of Persia game, and then they turned it into Assassin's Creed, and here we are, like, entry number 12, 13, anyway, into this franchise. Yeah, AC Mirage is coming out. I like that it's a smaller game. It's going to be $50 instead of one of their, like, massive RPG games that I'm sure Codename Red will be $70. But instead of being this super massive RPG, it's supposed to be going back towards the roots, so it's a smaller game. I've seen interviews that I think story length-wise, it's about the same time as length of AC1.
Yeah, I saw like 20 hours or something to beat the game, which is nice.
Yeah, instead of 100 or plus whatever it was for Valhalla.
You gotta.
I think Drew, have you finished Valhalla?
All right, listen.
Okay. Anyway,
all right, listen. Listen.
The game's been out since 2020.
Other things came out, and I'll get to it.
Anyway,
I've done a lot of that game.
We're also still waiting on Mass Effect 3.
It's the next one. I'm not gonna lie. I almost started Mass Effect 3 like literally today before it started, but I was like, oh no, I have to make the short. And then I went to go see a different movie that I'll talk about later, and now I'm doing this. So I did. Maybe after this podcast.
All right, you're gonna start Mass Effect 3 after this podcast. Got it.
It's a smaller game, like I said. It's $50. They've ripped out a bunch of the RPG elements, so you're not gonna have like all the
stats
like, what's the best loot to use, blah 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 blah, gear score, da da da. They have confirmed that they're gonna have outfits, but I think it's purely cosmetic, and you're gonna be able to like dye the outfits and whatnot, different colors. They've also confirmed that there's gonna be at least an Altair outfit. I'm sure they'll have like all your main assassins. I'm sure there'll be Altair, the Ezio Brotherhood outfit, armor.
Oh yeah,
that's Edward.
At
this
point.
Like at this point, yeah. So
can I put him in Cassandra's armor?
This kind of cool. This kind of cool filter that gives it kind of this bluish haze that the original AC1 game had. So I'm kind of looking forward to playing with the Altair outfit and then putting that filter on. That'll be fun.
You're making your own AC1 remake, I see.
AC1 remake, damn it, Ubisoft. I really
I'll make it myself.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
I really hope that they use some of the this takes place in Baghdad.
Correct.
In
9th century.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. 9th century Baghdad. It's a couple years before Altair, because they're still technically called the Hidden Ones, not Assassins. But I think architecturally wise, they could probably use some of that stuff to make an AC remake. Will they? I don't know. I hope so. Probably not.
Probably not. You're just gonna have to settle with the filter and the outfit, and that's
Yeah,
about
probably.
what you get.
There'll be
Take
a
a
mod that
filter and
replaces
be
your
happy.
face with Altair's face from Revelations or
Yeah.
something.
Randy, you can play
yeah,
it. You can play it in that new VR game that they announced. What was it called? Where Ezio has like a
Nexus.
really big nose.
It's like Nexus or something. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
not Ezio. I don't know what that man is, but that is not Ezio. His nose
Hashtag
is
not my
massive.
Ezio. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Dude, supposed
Dude's
to be
got
a-
like the fucking Morshoe nose.
The more shit.
It's
Yeah,
supposed to be
but-
returned to form.
Yeah.
they still have some of the RPG elements. You looks like you have classic eagle vision, but you still have your pet eagle for some reason. Maybe you can only use the pet eagle to find your actual target. That's what it looked like in the gameplay showcase.
Towards the end of the game, you and the eagle will like do like a fusion dance, and then you'll get his vision, and that's how the eagle vision comes out. Storytelling.
So like it kind of tracks because
you'll eat the bird.
Because it seemed to be like I'm actually not really quite sure what the point of the eagle is, because it seems to be the eagle vision is similar to Valhalla, where it kind of enters like a pulse thing where it tags a bunch of enemies through walls, but it wears off over time. And then you could fly soon in like that also in AC Valhalla, but you didn't really use them to mark things. It was more like for things far off, but this is a city and it's small.
Or you could like, I need to find an area that's like east of the city, and then you use the bird to be like, oh, it's over there.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm not really sure what the point, but I mean, I think there's got to be something there, because they specifically set up an enemy type to shoot down the bird.
Yeah. Basically, that's shown in the showcase, to where it's basically like it's just a simple assassination contract, and you this person's in this palace, fortress, whatever. He's in this area surrounded by guards, and you try and fly the bird over it, and basically a short little like cutscene takes place, and the bird's like and flies away, because there's archers trying to shoot down the bird.
And then he goes like, my dinner!
Archer. You have to go in there and take out the archer, and then you can use the bird, Enkidu. Anyway, whatever the bird's
there's no way that's actually I'm pretty sure you said it right the first time.
It's Enkidu. It's from the story of Gilgamesh, I believe. The Enkidu, the beast man.
Enkidu.
Anyway, just made something in Final Fantasy XIV make so much more sense. Like, you get Enkidu, the fucking chicken from Gilgamesh.
This is why you read.
Anyway,
this is why you read.
It's like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest heroic narratives. Like, man, this reminds me of Final Fantasy. Literature.
Oh my god, I want that T-shirt of "This is why you read."
And it's just Seth just pointing.
But I want to point out, I could use that against Seth for not reading video game instructions. This is why you read. Oh, that's a fantastic.
I can't wait to play AC Mirage. It's like, what's the point of Enkidu? I don't know.
Like the screen stops and it puts a little like bubble like text like, there. It says like skip.
Unless you use Enkidu, it's like, I don't know that.
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't see that. And then it's like, why can't I get past this one point where you're supposed to use Enkidu? Who?
Who is that?
The legend, the beast man? I'm like, no, the bird. This is why you read. All right, sorry. I'm sorry.
The only thing that kind of stuck out to me as a little worrisome is you could get this ability, and I think they marketed it as saying like, oh, it's kind of like, Splinter Cell, that game that we made, and I think it'd be cool if we made another one.
You remember the thing? Yeah.
It'd be really cool if they made another one. Anyway, pretty much there was this mark system where you'd like getting a certain number of stealth kills. I think you could build up basically an X queue where you can mark like 3, 4, X number of targets and then quickly take them out. And this is something similar to that, but you can mark people that are clearly out of your range. Like there's a range on it, but clearly out of your range to where like if Basim was to jump and like try and get to that person to do an air assassination, like no, you couldn't.
Yeah.
But you can mark like what happens in the showcase, he marks these 3 targets, and then he just teleports to each
He's
one.
Nightcrawler. He has Nightcrawler ability. That's all you teleported. That's all you need to say.
I just felt that as being like, I don't know, frustrating.
It's a little lazy.
I'm personally going to try not to use it in the game, but that's just...
I'm going to make a single clip about how many people I can assassinate in a row with random bullshit powers and be like, all right, this guy's stupid.
But that is one thing. You can get up to, I think it goes up to 5. So you can do 5 people in a row. And then if you set it up right, if you then run up and assassinate another person, it still has the chain assassination from Origins. Or Origins had it, and up through Valhalla, where basically if you assassinate someone and another person is close by enough, in Valhalla you'd throw an axe. They just replaced it with a knife, but it's the exact same animation. So you could assassinate up to 7 people. Super fast, and I'm like, that's gonna be so busted.
And what I wanted to say was like, I think the thing is like a multi-assassination ability is cool, but like, yeah, the whole teleport thing is a little lame. I remember that also being the first time I noticed that was in AC Odyssey, where they had like that chain assassination move, where the trick was the camera would just quickly go over to the next target, and then
you just run up.
Would run off screen and then just like, oh, I'm here now, and stab them. The thing was, Splinter Cell's mark and execute system was obviously way cooler because it was the cinematic camera angles where you marked multiple targets, and it was the thing where if enemies were close to Sam, he would do melee takedowns and chain between them. If they were far from each other, he would then switch to whatever gun he had equipped to like pop them in the head, and it'd be like these really cool like John Wick-esque like fucking moves where he would like snap to each target. I wish they would have done something with Basim similar here, where he used like a throwing knife or something, where he'd be like
just had a bunch of throwing knives and just.
No, he's just Nightcrawler. He can just teleport.
I would much rather that than teleportation.
He uses his stand ability, stops time, and walks over.
Yeah, and it's like it's very clearly when you look at this game, like a lot of the animations and stuff is things carried over from Valhalla. So I don't know if it's something
I'm fine with. Like, yeah. Whatever. This originally started as a DLC for like the first like month of concept, and then they're like, "Fuck it, this should be a whole game." Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and it's just a shame that like, yeah, that might be part of the limitations. We just don't know, but I would have much preferred that they would have brought some sort of mark and execute system here. But building on top of that with the animations, I want to talk about the parkour. The parkour animations does look very similar still to Valhalla, where you're just still kind of like jump. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
It seems like maybe a bit more towards Origins, I guess. And I think the only real difference here, and I remember people getting hyped like, oh, it's going to be like Unity. And I was like, it won't. I would love it to be, but we'll get on that at a later podcast. But it is finally a game style that we've been missing since Unity.
Syndicate.
Syndicate, technically, actually.
Syndicate's walkways were too wide, but a city game.
Yeah.
I felt like there hasn't been a true city game since Unity. In regards to being close enough to where parkour is feasible and like at least interactive to a degree, just purely based on environmental design. So
the best way to put it is like there was actually more than moves than just climb up, climb down, basically. Like there were
I'm sure they're like
that present.
I'm sure even some of that like was in Valhalla, but you just don't get to experience it because you're just in the rolling hills of England.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it more promising is even though the parkour system doesn't seem that much different from Valhalla, they've added in just enough. Like I don't remember if zip lines were in Valhalla or if they were, they just weren't very present. But like I did see that had kind of made a return.
There are a few of like little like crate things where you go and like kick a thing and it shoots you up to the top of the building.
Yeah, lifts and stuff.
And like there's that here, but I think what helps is the city of Baghdad definitely looks way more like dense and packed with like alleyways and like ways to climb, because I noticed there was so many more beams here than anywhere in fucking like Valhalla or Odyssey to like kind of climb on and jump from. So like at the very least they're providing different routes. And one thing I also noticed with at least the gameplay trailer they showcased is in the bottom right hand corner there seemed to be like a bar that was gray that filled up red with multiple symbols. Seemed to be like a pursuit meter, kind of like I use this comparison. It's I guess like a GTA. It's kind of like your wanted meter, but it seems like the more you're in open combat, the more that red meter filled up and like different enemy types come out. So it seems to encourage the player to like not be in open combat and instead try to like get away from like their pursuers. So like parkour will be more of an emphasis there. I think something also that'll make it more interesting is the different gadgets. I did like whenever when Basim kind of like finally got the target and he was making his escape, he ran between two guards and threw down on the ground like this like red smoke bomb that disoriented them.
And then also,
So,
like they planned a little beforehand, and like before they assassinated the target, they saw there was a guard at like the front of this like plaza, and he's like, that person's gonna turn around once I kill this person, and like lays a trip mine basically. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
And I think that would be cool. I think like these are all elements that will hopefully come together to basically be like make AC Mirage more of a traditional Assassin's Creed game, which will be a nice breath of fresh air.
Make Assassin's Creed about assassins again. Who would have guessed?
But and it's like it's one of those things where I think with AC Mirage, it's not going to. Nothing about that showcase specifically wowed me. Like, oh wow, this is the coolest like AC game ever. But I was like the whole time I was like, oh yeah, this is refreshing. It's nice to see like these systems are back and like this kind of play style is being re-emphasized. One of the things that I really like about this showcase is they mostly focus on just showing off the parkour and stealth elements. They didn't. They hardly showed off any of the combat, what open combat looked like.
Yeah, they pretty much like the only combat there was is one of the guards turned around and he parried them and then instantly took him out, almost like a counter kill, which is a lot like that's exactly how the first game's played. Maybe this person was like you have maybe different types of enemies, so maybe this is just like your basic guard, so you can counter kill them easily.
Yeah, because it seemed like just like a grunt, and then like as he was like executing him. The big guard turned around and started running back there, but he walked on that trip mine that he had set earlier. And that didn't even kill the guard. It just like knocked him down. And whenever he ran past them, there was an option that popped over and said kill, but the player just ignored that and just kept running.
Yeah, they were like, I gotta get out. But yeah, that's one thing they said. They've emphasized that Basim is very, like, would rather do stealth as a character, like part of his character. He's like, no, I want to do stealth. I don't want to be fighting a big wave.
Please do so. Player. Like he turns, he looks at the camera. Player. Yes, you. Let's do stealth this time. I've been doing too much Viking shit. Please.
It feels like stealth is kind of taking a backseat, and like since like Odyssey, like it's there, but I feel like most of what I've seen is like just open combat.
Yeah, for sure in the more recent games, and but yeah, as a character, and then also I think they've given him a lot less health in comparison to Eivor and stuff. So
what I'm kind of hoping is like since they only showed one guy attacking him, is maybe it's a situation where Basim might be okay with fighting on a one-on-one situation, but maybe it's a case where he could be easily like overwhelmed by multiple like enemies.
I hope so. That's what I want out of Assassin's Creed, because like that's kind of in AC1 it was kind of like that. You got to a point later in the game where you could get through more people, but like for sure, like early game it was like get your target, get out.
Yeah, that was definitely the case.
All right. Well, that is a lot on Assassin's Creed Mirage. It'll be very interesting, and given that all four of us are Assassin's Creed fans, we'll more than likely be talking about that game in depth whenever it comes out.
I think it's October. I think it's literally the exact same day as Spider-Man 2, which is another game I'm looking forward to. Yeah. Look at that transition.
That's not fun. Well, I was gonna let Robert talk about what he wanted to talk about.
We should probably toss it to Robert.
Robert has been waiting patiently for almost an hour just to talk about the game he wants to talk about.
I'll allow it.
I do. I love the transition. I love it. I respect it. Honestly, great. If this was a 3-man podcast, then yes, great job. But Robert, what are you excited about? That was showcased off.
I'm excited about the game that is very much original. It is called Pal World. As Jeff Keighley lovingly described it, it's like Pokemon with guns.
Oh yeah, that did look dope.
I forgot.
When it was described, it was like Pokemon with guns. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh,
What is
you?
this?
I remember.
I remember
so
saying that. I was like,
remember,
"Can you say
about,
that?"
I remember about like a year ago, like I was seeing clips of this shit on like Twitter. So it's very interesting that this game is now getting even more attention. Well, I'm not sure if it deserves it, but it certainly is.
Hey, calm
Yeah,
down,
it's like
man.
one copyright infringement away.
Bro.
I
They are
It
playing
doesn't
with
help, but
fire,
to be
given
fair-
that they just called it. they straight up
Well,
say
it-
Pokemon with guns.
and I hate to say it, but like I don't know if it was Robert or you, Drew, but like I remember one of you guys looking into dev. It's like, yeah, most of a lot of their stuff is just shovelware. So I don't know about this one, guys.
It's a game that stood out to me, but I don't know if it was for the right reason.
It sounds like game of the year to me.
It's
Sounds like game of
this
the
is
year.
what Jeff thought was worth showing.
You
It was
know,
definitely one of the games of all time.
it was a game.
Showcase to ever exist.
This has definitely been a game of all time. Oh, fantastic. Okay.
But no, another game
Yeah.
that I'm excited about from that same presentation was what they ended the showcase with, which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I was a pretty big fan of Final Fantasy VII like remake.
No.
Like obviously I played the first game, like the original game on
Yeah.
like the PS1, and thought, okay, that was good,
Mm.
but I felt like it was just kind of not fleshed out enough, and that's something I really liked about remake was that it kind of fleshed out like the world of like Midgar and whatnot, and it kind of seems to me that they're really going to be fleshing out this world even more so since now they're in like the open part of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what they do with this story because minor spoilers, they do some weird shit at the end of 7 remake. Like Nomura goes full Nomura mode
Hmm.
and does like basically is making a whole new freaking continuity for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we gonna do with this?
They're like, we got
It's like,
time travel
Tifa
multiple
might have
times.
freaking died.
But wasn't that okay? Correct me if I'm wrong though. But wasn't that a thing? Like that's a similar line to the original. Like there is a time when Sephiroth's like, "I just killed her. What are you gonna do now, Cloud? Stab me?" And then Cloud stabs him, and Tifa's like, "I'm not actually dead." Like wasn't that in the original as well, or am I wrong?
Sort of.
Okay.
There's like a
feel
thing.
like I'm taking off a brain rot.
I don't know.
There's like a thing. There's like a pretty big plot point about Cloud. It's like you're not sure if he even really participated.
I know. Like Cloud's like I know the story of Final Fantasy VII of
Yeah.
like Cloud's memories aren't all his, and like
Yeah.
he starts like having doubts about himself. I get that. I'm more just like wasn't what Sephiroth talked about also in the original as well, like being like I just killed Tifa.
There's an Aerith, I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. The gameplay looks really great. It's gonna be nice having like your full party and being able to finally play as Red 13.
Yeah.
Because that was like the weirdest thing to me is like, oh yeah, we have Red 13 here. He's not gonna be playable. He's AI, but he's here.
Like he
So
was
it's
he
nice
was
to see
sequel
him.
bait. He was just like, "Hi, it's me, Red 13. Buy the next game."
They pretty much told everybody, but hey, this was going to be like in 3 parts.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
I
remake,
mean-
rebirth, and whatever the heck is next.
Yeah, they.
Um,
This has been planned out very long in advance of just like this is just a setup game. This is a 10-hour setup game for the next one. I mean, that sounds like an insult. It's still a good game. that sounds really harsh. No, it's still very wonderful storytelling. I mean, but you get what I mean. I'll stop interrupting you, Robert.
all right, let's see what's up next. I'm going to briefly talk about Spider-Man 2 because I have a couple other things that. One of these is what me and Seth are definitely itching to talk about.
Yeah.
But let's start with Spider-Man 2.
All right. So we're gonna
really big fan of the first one.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah, that game was
fan of-
dope.
Yeah,
Big
Randy's
fan of Miles
fantastic.
Morales as well, so
Yes.
I'm glad to get more Spider-Man.
After watching Spider-Verse, I'm very much like, I wanna play this game. I need this game in my life.
Yeah.
PlayStation, Drew.
I know. That's the problem now, isn't it?
Break the Xbox shrine.
No, it's a good. It's
I was
a
about
cool
to say
looking
it's
shot.
a good setup.
It's
I mean,
a
he has literally every single Xbox console.
Yeah, it's so cool
Setup.
looking, and I can turn my TV stand like to go green, and if I turn them all on, it looks cool.
Yeah.
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 One of the things I want to like kind of jump in with like Spider-Man 2 is I thought it was a pretty neat showcasing of like the gameplay.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it is though. I just wasn't particularly like wowed by it, and it might be because it's doing exactly everything that I expected it to do. Like symbiote Spider-Man, switching between protagonists.
Yeah.
Craven is the main antagonist here. They even do the whole like thing where Spider-Man is like more edgy now, and he's trying to sound more intimidating, but it sounds honestly more ridiculous than like actually intimidating. It's just
They're doing the
like,
Spider-Man 3 thing.
it's like, oh god, it's Bully McGuire back. One of the things I'm worried about with Spider-Man 2 is I think the strength of the first Spider-Man game was that it was a game where it took what you knew about Spider-Man and it remixed things. It changed stuff up, and it put the focus on elements like characters and villains that you don't typically see a lot of in Spider-Man. Like, you know, having like Yuri as sort of like Spider-Man's like police officer sidekick here in Spider-Man 1. Having the game start with like Peter and MJ being broken up, having Peter already be in college, which we don't, or not college, sorry, he's already graduated. He's a grad.
Yeah.
He's working for Doc Ock.
This is
like
this
stuff.
is
And then
older
putting
Peter. Like
Yeah.
he's not a teenager anymore.
Yeah, and then also like putting like a villain, like lesser known villains like Mr. Negative and Tombstone in the spotlight. The strength I think of Marvel Spider-Man was taking what you knew, sort of flipping it on its head and throwing a lot of elements about a side of Spider-Man that people didn't know, and putting that in the forefront. And then also taking narrative risks, like spoilers for 2018 Spider-Man. It's your fucking fault. Aunt May dies, which is a pretty like insane twist as like not twist.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah.
It's a move.
It's a hard fucking ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like watching here, it's like, okay, yes. Obviously, we knew Peter and Miles were going to team up. Yes, he has the symbiote suit. Craven is here. Doc Connor, I assume it's Doc Connors as like the lizard, like they're chasing him and stuff like that. And it's like, this is cool, but at the same time, it's like, but I've seen this stuff before already. And like, even everybody already knows that, like, yeah, midway through this game, or maybe towards the beginning of Act 3, there's going to be a fight between Miles and Peter.
Yeah.
Like, it's inevitable. And like, I get it, it's cool, but I think one of the things what's been great about Spider-Man recently is when we take elements about that and we make stuff happen in unpredictable ways. I really feel, and it's maybe one of those things where once I get this game in my hands, I'll be more excited for it. But I'm hoping that, like, maybe I just need to not watch any more Spider-Man 2 trailers, because it's kind of like, because like, obviously if there is going to be crazy big twists, they're not going to be showing it in the trailers.
Like maybe they're just showing this moment because it's the safest.
Yeah. So like so everything, I guess the best way I could put it is everything looks neat, if a bit safe to me.
Like it's
in terms of,
exactly
like,
what
Spider-Man.
it's almost like exactly what you would think. And I think I can kind of know
Yeah.
what you mean, because like I don't know if I'd go as far as you did to say like it flips Spider-Man on its head, but I think it's more just like the fact that every single Spider-Man medium that like we see is him, like either A, an origin story, or B, like him still in high school and figuring out his powers and doing all that. And I'm talking about, like, you know, not just the games, but obviously the movies and like most Spider-Man shows and all that. And like, this is coming from a guy who I love Spider-Man. Like, he's on my water bottle that like I walk around with working. Like, I love Spider-Man. But he's a lot of times a teenager. And so I think it was so refreshing in PS4 to see him as like an old, like a Spider-Man that knows what he's doing. That's like, yeah, I know these villains. I'm like equipped. I'm matured. He's he still has problems in his life, but like he's not like figuring it out anymore. He's not a high school. It was just so different from like what we'd seen so many times that it was really refreshing. So.
And like also like another example as like a Spider-Man doing things like not typically I expected and gotten really good results is the Spider-Verse films. We got a very interesting depiction of Peter Parker as Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse, and it
old and
might
depressed.
be my personal favorite. Yeah, old, depressed, no girlfriend, no maidens. It's
See, this is why Seth likes this version. He's like, I can relate to this guy. He's poor. He's lonely. He's sad. He's just like me.
Yeah, but like here's the thing though, like it gets even better with like Across the Spider-Verse, and this isn't a spoiler, but you see that like this Peter's now a dad. He has like a baby, and he's like
it was in the trailers, people.
Yeah. You better not get mad. Yeah, surprise, he has a baby. Even though I'm pretty sure the ending of Into the Spider-Verse heavily implies that like he's going back to his universe to like follow through and be like let's have a kid. So kiss my ass. Fucking Spider-Man fans.
Right, I don't think anyone was complaining about you. You're just making an enemy of no one.
I feel like it's my MO now where it's just like, I just like to cause violence against
That's just
most
hates
of our
fans.
This is like, I choose chaos today.
Fuck you for liking something that I like.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, like I think that's the thing. I feel like it's to judge too much. It's cool that we have gameplay of it. It's great that we're having a mostly solid October release date, and they've already confirmed at least that like Venom is not going to be Eddie Brock, which I think is nice because my prediction is that they want this to be a very villainous villain. They don't want to like get anti-hero Venom in their universe.
I'm not
at
gonna
least
lie.
Not yet.
I was really hoping for Eddie Brock for the sole reason of I want them to recreate the scene where Eddie Brock goes to church and literally prays for a man to die.
Yeah.
Is still the most fucking hilarious thing in that. God, please just kill Peter Parker.
There will be a reference to it. Like they already reference like quite a bit of stuff in like the Marvel Spider-Man with the movies. So there'll be something. I'm sure they'll throw it.
Miles goes to church. Please just kill Harry Osborn.
But one thing I will say is because of the presence of Kraven, I think the direction that a comic book they might take a lot of influence from is Kraven's Last Hunt. Drew, you might be familiar with this.
Yes.
Which does deal with like Kraven going up against a black suited Spider-Man. Not the symbiote suit Spider-Man. It's not the symbiote, but it is a black suit that he got from Black Cat. And that one is if you read those comics, they are a very dark depiction of it because spoilers for this comic that came out in the late 80s, so it's over 30 years old now. Kraven, quote unquote, kills Spider-Man, takes his suit, and basically parades around as Spider-Man. By the way, this is a Kraven that is dying and losing his mind. And all the while, Peter is 6 feet underground in a fucking coffin. He has to dig his own way out of a grave. It's a very dark, psychological kind of comic. But it'd be interesting if they take elements from that, since I don't think it's a coincidence that we have a black-suited Spider-Man and Kraven in the same game. Yeah. But who knows? We'll see.
It'll be interesting because, like you mentioned, that when he takes the suit from Peter, it's not a symbiote. It's just a regular black suit. So it'll be interesting to have like Eddie, Kraven, how are you gonna take this off of him? Because the only reason that you survive most of these fights is because Spider-Man pulls his punches, and when he has a Venom suit on, he doesn't do that too often. So that'll be interesting to see. All right,
I'm curious how like when you're fighting as like symbiote Peter, if they're going to implement more like the brutality into like his like abilities and stuff.
I mean, they've already kind of like shown that, Bro, there's that one scene where he kicks a man in the dick like 10 times. Y'all remember that? Like where like he like pops out. I just want to see
more of that.
He like pops out and like throws a truck, and this one dude has a gun. He presses up against the house and just like does like one-handed standing kicks directly to this man's penis. And I'm like, Spider-Man, just kill him at that point.
Yeah, I want to see more like that kind of stuff from
Yeah.
Peter, and then I want to see them kind of flesh out Miles's like kit more, because
Yeah.
Miles's kit was like kind of broken. Like he could do some ridiculous shit that was like even better than Peter's stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like,
I want
he
to
had-
see more of that stuff, like
Yeah,
the
he had-
electricity powers.
Yeah, he had like less gadgets, but he had more in terms of like the electrical powers. Yeah, and I hope I'm hoping also Miles gets a fair shake here. I did like Miles Morales. I was a little bit and this is just my opinion, I was a little bit let down with the story of Spider-Man Miles Morales, mostly because I'll be honest, I really didn't like the main villain. She,
especially if you try to compare her to Doc Ock, like she kind of falls flat.
Well, it's more just like it's one of those issues where like, oh, she's supposed to be kind of a sympathetic villain, but she also strays way too far into like, you're now in stupid territory.
Like you're about to nuke the city. Calm down.
It's like, it reminds me of like just the shit of like, oh, I'm doing this for a better like. I won't name anything, but let's just say there was a character in a recent thing we talked about where it's just like, I'm doing this for my daughter. Proceeds to throw daughter against the wall, cracking it. It's just like, okay,
doubt.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, but we have a way to also help your daughter and other people. No, only the daughter. Okay. Anyway.
Break the ground from under her, so she needs to be saved by one of the heroes. Okay. The villain was very lackluster in Miles, especially since like they already had Prowler in it, which, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here. Oh, I'm excited. I hope Miles doesn't get overshadowed here, and I feel like he won't. I feel like there'll be some good stuff with him.
Yeah. So, but that's Spider-Man. One of the last thing that I will talk about. I'll let everyone kind of go around again to get one more pick in if they have it. But the last thing I want to talk about is a little game called Hellblade 2, and I played the first played the first Hellblade, and it's visually stunning. It's super unique in its gameplay and like the way it uses sound. It's also like incredibly creepy and scary. So like it's a really good horror game, and has a lot of like really cool like visual like Nordic and like other like Norse like just visuals, and like it's a really cool game. And I love when kind of a big developer takes a bit more like of an artsy kind of different take for games like this. And I love that this has kind of become like one of Xbox's like big showcase things. This little like, I mean, they're not a small developer anymore, but like a kind of a not like a Halo or a not like big action adventure explosions ever. It's like more like personal story. So I'm excited for Hellblade 2 and Senua's story. So I will definitely be picking that up when it comes to Game Pass. I've kind of that's kind of been one of my like big looking forward tos. With it's been teased a bunch since this. So
like I'm surprised it's not out yet. Like I feel like I've been seeing this at like
it has been it has been being
like
teased and teased
2018,
forever. I'm like I know I know it's like a hard game to develop given what it is with like how it does sound and everything, but like it's been getting teased and teased for a while. You're right.
I was about to say, wasn't it like when they announced the Series X? Wasn't it in the announcement?
Back in 2020,
it was
They were
part
like,
of like
hey, we're making a Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
I think I remember that being at the Game Awards 2019.
Yeah.
But I guess like we said, game development is hard. Everyone expects the next game that comes out to be the biggest thing ever, which is why I'm really hoping that Mirage is polished and sells well to show like, look, give us this $50 experience that's, like 10 or no, it was like 20 hours to 25 hours, please. We don't need a game to be a bajillion hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. Seth, what are some of the what's another game for you that was either announced or maybe a game that was announced earlier that we got some gameplay for now?
Mm-hmm. I'll say like it's not my. It is definitely like a game I'm personally excited for. Although I won't say it's actually not my most anticipated game of this year. it is Starfield, obviously. Like, they showed off a great showcase.
Not gonna lie, now
I'll say
where I
this,
thought you
like,
were going.
Yeah, it's not my most anticipated game, but I will say, like, hey, if it turns out that Starfield is utter fucking dog shit, this is the greatest magic trick that anyone's pulled off at like an E3 or anything.
That it
it's
would've
like,
been.
damn, this showcase.
They put a
Yeah,
lot.
it's a-
They put a lot of effort into this. If this is bad,
Yeah, like they put a lot of effort to make it look bad. No, I would say that, like, once again with Starfield, it's like, look, it's Bethesda doing what they do best. It's a big ass open world RPG style kind of game. You're getting exactly that, and it is that on like a massive scale. I don't really think I need to say too much on it in terms of like what it does right, because there's plenty of people like already, like there's plenty of people to talk about online. You can look it up yourself and make your own judgment. I will say that whenever I get it, I will do my damnedest to build Spike Spiegel in space and live out my Cowboy Bebop fantasy. Because I am going to get the wanted perk on him, so he's constantly hunted down by bounty hunters, and that's how I'm going to roll. But one of the things I do want to touch on with this game is my concerns. One of the things they talked about is like how they're handling. Sorry, I'm a frog in my throat. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the way they're handling certain content exploration. They're saying some of these planets are going to have procedurally generated areas, and so like the locations you're going to find is. Might be procedurally generated, and the way they kind of sell it's like, oh, no one player is going to have the exact same location. They're going to experience it. It's a little vague on the wording. My interpretation is they have a bunch of different prefabs of dungeons or like kind of areas to explore, and they're going to kind of like loop them into like different places, maybe have some couple like randomized modifiers for them. We'll see how that goes. Typically, Bethesda's strengths is not really doing the randomly generated content in their worlds. It's usually like the handcrafted dungeons is like always their cool stuff, whether it's Skyrim or Fallout. They always have unique locations that kind of tell a story through just the environment alone. And I talked about it with my brother Zane. I'm a bit concerned about if we're going to lose something with this procedural generated, are we still going to get the exact same level of detail as we got in like a Fallout or a Skyrim?
16 times the detail. Sorry.
And that's why that's exactly it. That's why I'm concerned about it. So it's one of those things that's like, it's a little too good to be true kind of deal. Another thing is the frame rate. They've already confirmed that this game is going to be coming out at a 4K 30 FPS on the Series X console, 1440p for the Series S. And it's going to be only that setting. There's not going to be a performance mode or anything. I can live with that. I can understand the scale of the game. But remember, the last game they talked about it like this was Redfall. And Redfall came out shit. So
because there was nothing. There's just nothing to do in the game.
Now, granted, there's a difference here. Redfall, we were only notified about that a couple weeks before release. At least here, they're being upfront about it like 3 months in advance. Yeah. So I'm hoping I can live with it being 4K 30 frames. I can live with that, but it's got to be a consistent 30 frames.
I feel like that's kind of like a concerning thing. Just like not paying too much attention, just seeing like, okay, there was a big fiasco about 30 frames a second for their last big release. So them kind of doing it again for their next big release is kind of like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I understand like the scope of what they're doing with Starfield, so it's like, if that's what it takes to make the game they want, then go for it. But I feel like it's going to get a lot of bad press just because of what happened with Redfall. Just it may not be to the same scale because it's a different type of game.
I at least respect. I'll say I at least respect the fact that they're like, we're not even like it's too big. We're not gonna try. Like we're not gonna put out a like
super unstable
thing that's just not gonna work, and it's just gonna like go back. It's like if it's gonna do 30 consistently, I feel like most people will agree we'd rather 30 consistency versus like 40 or 60 and it'd be like jumping all over the place and it'd just be awful. So I at least respect that they're like, this is what it can do, nothing more, nothing less. And if it actually does it, then it's great. If it doesn't, then there's a bigger issue there.
It's like if it gets like too inconsistent, it's just gonna give you like motion sickness.
Exactly.
That was like when I played like Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm getting a little bit of this too with Survivor, is the fluctuating frame rate is just kind of hard to look at sometimes because it's like so jarring. So it's like when I played Fallen Order, I just went to like graphic settings to play at like a more stable 30 just because it was a lot less jarring.
Exactly. And like that's the thing. It's like, all right, you're making the promise for 30 frames per second. It's got to be a good 30. Like that's the deal. It's like, and here's another thing. And this is like less aimed towards Bethesda and just the game industry in general. And I talked with Robert about this. I've been playing a bit more on like PC, specifically my Steam Deck. And one thing I'm kind of shocked by is why we're always still targeting 30 frames per second when I feel like 40 frames per second is actually a good in between. You can get the game running some of like the nicer like textures and assets and all that shit, like 4K or whatever, but running it at like a 40 frames per second is not that crazy of a jump. And there is a noticeable, like if it's consistent, a smoother experience than 30 frames per second. I wish that would be normalized. It's like, let's ditch 30, let's go for 40. Let's try to aim for 40 frames per second.
It depends on the kind of game though. If it's a first-person shooter, that might be a little weird, but for a third-person game, like I've done that on my Steam Deck with Monster Hunter Rise, it runs a lot better than the Switch, even though it's like 10 frames difference. You could just feel it being a lot more like responsive than the Switch one. Not that the Switch version was bad. The Switch version of Rise was better than it had any right to be.
Yeah, and like I run Red Dead Redemption 2 at 40 frames per second, and like that's more of a third-person shooter, but it feels good there too. So I wish 40 frames per second would be normalized. All right, I'm sorry, that's enough about Starfield. I want to actually move on to the actual game I'm really excited about. That's coming out this year. Alan, so I'm just not even going to bother to try to.
Before you go on to off of Starfield, I will say one little complaint. You brought it up a little bit about procedurally generated worlds. As far as I was aware, when they were showcasing off like the just Starfield itself, I counted I think 4 like developed worlds that are like, all right, these are developed by itself, and so that kind of indicates to me that everything else other than those 4 world/hubs are procedurally generated. And I believe Todd Henderson was like, you'll be able to explore 1,000 worlds. And I was like, no. As soon as he said that, I looked at Will and we both went, and there'll be nothing to do in them, just like Redfall and Fallout 76.
Yeah. Well, those games weren't procedurally generated, though. That's the thing.
It's just...
The better comparison would be something like No Man's Sky. Because
that was turn around after like a year of we fucked up redevelopment.
It was years, literal years, because that game came out in 2016, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, like I get that. I feel like it's gonna be, you're gonna have set cities and stuff like that, like your kind of hubs that are like fully developed and there's a lot to explore there, whatever. And then you're gonna have smaller planets. The way I kind of read into it is you're gonna have some planets and moons that you can go to and explore. I feel like those, like the actual moons and planets themselves will be handcrafted, but actually landing on them and the locations you find there will be procedurally generated, if that makes sense. Like they're not procedurally generating planets like No Man's Sky did, like whole planets. Like I feel like it's going to be, all right, here's the basis of the planet. We're going to procedurally generate the content around it. And that's, once again, the concern is still the same though. But
I could see it being very repetitive or just very bland in these 1,000, like you get to explore 1,000 worlds. I was like, no, give me like 20 detailed ones and I would be so happy.
Yeah. It really just depends on like how well the procedural generation is, and if it's like they're using prefabs of like dungeons to like mix and match on the different planets. But sorry, I gotta really move on to my other game. It's
okay,
very
go
appropriate.
for it.
Yeah. This is the one that got delayed so much because it's a game that we've been waiting for a sequel for 13 years. It is Alan Wake 2. No one is gonna pop off in this party about it, but that's okay because I am gonna pop off for it.
I can call Will in here. He'll pop off with you.
Okay, cool.
Still, again, not the sequel I was expecting us to start talking about.
Because here's the thing, though, Drew, is like no one really played Alan Wake 1. Only a handful of us. But it's such an interesting thing because it's like it was a supernatural kind of like drama, weird story. The best way I could describe it is when it came out in 2010, it was like a really neat supernatural Netflix drama that came out before Netflix was even a thing back then. And now we're finally getting a sequel to it. And it's been 13 years. I've been on a big survival horror kick. The little bit of gameplay that they showed us feels like that they are now leaning way more into the survival horror elements. The thing that got me most pumped about this is the creator, Sam Lake, or not the creator, but one of the directors on it, has said that like one of their big influences for this game is True Detective, which I love the first season of True Detective, and it is all about this like creepy, weird, magical mysticism, real surrealism mixed in the world where you're not quite sure what's real and what's fake. And I am super pumped if that's what the direction that Alan Wake 2 is going to go into. In a year that's already had really solid like survival horror titles, that mostly remakes, but with Dead Space and Resident Evil 4, I'm really hoping Alan Wake 2 can like join with that group. It looks solid. It is my personal anticipated game because Alan Wake 1 ended on a cliffhanger for Alan, and I'm hoping to see where his fate goes in the sequel.
All right. Interesting. Well, that's a lot of games from Seth. I'm going to be honest, Seth. The game, I was really waiting for you to start talking about Dragon's Dogma.
Well, that's not coming out until 2024.
So I guess that's fair. Yeah, we still got a while. So let's just pretend it's not real until the next year. I like that plan.
If you want to quote, it looks cool.
Cool. All right, Robert, your turn.
All right. So this is something that has been one of the worst kept secrets ever. It's been leaked so many different times in different ways. Is Persona 3 Reload. This was something that was initially leaked from an Atlus internal meeting where there was a brief clip of one of the game's characters, Yukari, summoning her persona, and that clip was making the rounds. So okay, they are definitely making something with Persona 3, because Persona 3 is one of the most popular Persona games, surprisingly, more so in Japan than over here. But we knew that was coming, and then in front of the release, or the trailer officially that came out, Atlus's Instagram accidentally uploaded the full trailer to Persona 3 Reload. So if you weren't gonna get unspoiled if you go on anywhere on the internet. And that game looks really good. They're taking a lot of what style Persona 5 had and adding Persona 3's twist to it. So it's it's kind of a mix of both in a way, stylized, but it works really well. Because Persona 3 was originally a PS2 game, so definitely is aged to today's standards, but it's got the glow up of the century over here. And both just the graphics, and I'm excited to see what kind of gameplay improvements, because it looks like they're going to clean it up a lot. Because the original game could be kind of hard to go to these days, because they made a lot of very interesting decisions at the time with the life sim elements and stuff. But I want to ask Seth, what do you kind of think about this? You don't really know much Persona 3. You're mostly Persona 5. So I kind of want to know what you think about that.
I'm excited because obviously I've already told you that I have major plans to basically play the original Persona 3 anyways. That was on the Game Pass. So I can have a point of comparison. But I am looking forward to this game, for sure. It's because obviously it's taken the stylings of Persona 5's UI and design and just making it and adding those quality of life changes to make it look better. and I'm just really excited to see how they modernize those mechanics. But I'm also looking forward to it because I hear a lot of times that Persona 3 of like 3, 4, and 5 has like the darkest narrative out of all of them, since it's the subject matter is like talking about death. And yeah, I kind of know sort of where the story goes. But I'm still excited to see how they play out. Not to mention, some of the stuff they talk about, what they're doing here is very interesting, such as they are updating the voice cast here. They're changing it since the original. By the way, if you want to tie into something, Yuri Lowenthal voiced Makoto in the original Persona 3. Granted, it's just yelling Persona names and grunts, but he voiced them technically.
Yeah.
So technically, Spider-Man was in Persona 3. But I'm excited for it.
So now Makoto's being voiced by Luke from Streets.
I love Luke from Streets.
Oh, really? That's who they're getting.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. I'm always down for it. Plus, from what I don't know if it was Junpei's original voice actor, but I heard that some of them got into iffy things, so it might be best for them not to be there.
Yeah, they recast like everybody. So, but it's people that seem to be genuinely excited about playing these characters. Like they're people that probably played Persona 3 like when it came out. So it's going to be nice to kind of see like what people who like really love these characters kind of portray them.
Right. I think that will be fun.
So,
What I'm kind of like looking forward to is some of like it seems they're going to be changing some of the game systems to be like more like Persona 5. So Persona 3 has a couple things that I don't think have aged well. One of them being like the fatigue system, which granted kind of becomes a non-issue towards like the end of the game. But at the start of the game, as you progress through like the game's main dungeon, Tartarus, your party members get tired. So when they're tired, they do less damage, they miss attacks more often, that kind of stuff. And then when you go back to like the dungeon's entrance, they'll just leave. They're like, all right, I'm too tired, I'm done. So you have less party members the longer you're in there. Granted, like when you level up more, that they don't really get tired nearly as often, so you can kind of grind more. But it makes like the beginning of the game quite a bit of a slog. So I'm kind of hoping that they tone that down even more than Portable already did. Because what I'm bringing up is the problem of like 3 and Fez. Because there's 3 versions of Persona 3, now it could be 4, all with different things, and no one can decide what the fucking definitive version is. Because they've already confirmed this for Reload, is they're not including some of the content that people really are hit or miss on in Fez, which is called the Answer storyline, which takes place after the events of the main story of Persona 3. It's a very polarizing bit of like story because the story itself is good, but the gameplay people really don't like. And after watching gameplay myself, it's like it's Persona 3 but without the life sim elements. So it's more like Shin Megami Tensei, like the mainline in a way, but not really because it's still the Persona battle system. So it just gets really tedious and boring because you're doing all the dungeon crawling, but you don't have like all the character interactions and stuff to kind of tie it together. Because that's kind of what makes Persona like what it is to me.
Yeah.
Is like the combination of like gameplay for the dungeon crawling and like the social elements, how they kind of play hand in hand. So when you take one of those bits out, it just throws the whole thing off. So I kind of understand why they're not including this in Reload, but it kind of feels like a missed opportunity because it is still canon story. But everything else about Reload just looks like really good. So I'm excited to see more about it. I really like how they're going even harder on like the symbolism because, like Seth mentioned earlier, a big part of Persona 3's storyline is death and how it like affects everybody in different ways and such.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is Persona 3 the one where they have to shoot themselves in the head to get their stand out?
It is.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought.
One of the first scenes in the game is seeing Yukari point a gun to her head, struggling to like pull the trigger. Which you think, oh, is she going to commit suicide? No, she's summoning a persona. Yeah. But the way they summon their personas is to like
shoot themselves in the forehead.
they have to invoke the sensation of death to like summon their persona. It's like kind of fucked up, but it makes sense with the game's symbolism. But like, it's interesting to see what they can do with this game with like modern hardware as opposed to PlayStation 2. But yeah,
Interesting.
Long-winded version of this game looks really good.
Yeah. Honestly, that's been this
And
entire
Halo 5
podcast.
Tactica
Though.
looks alright.
That's been this entire podcast of this thing looks good. So last but certainly not least, especially on this month, yeah, we brought it back. We brought the joke back. Randy, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? You're going to be the final one. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up from any of the showcase that you haven't got a chance to talk about?
Well, okay, so this is something that no one here will have any input on, so I'll go very quick with it. They showed off a
Quick like
good
a race
bit
car.
of Forza Motorsport gameplay. Technically, it was the day after. I think they showed a small snippet of it, and they said, "Oh, we'll do a full gameplay breakdown with a Forza Monthly the day after the showcase." They're changing a lot about how they're doing progression from the last Motorsport that I played, which, to be fair, was Motorsport 6, which I think was 2017, 15, somewhere in there. Anyway, they're doing this weird like progression thing to where it's going to be more like instead of just you just buy a car with like you win races, you get money. You buy cars with money,
Fuck
you upgrade
bitches.
cars with money. Yeah, exactly. They're doing this thing to where basically you still get money in races, and then depending on like how you drive and whatnot and how long you've driven this particular car, you get these things called car points, and that's going to be used for upgrading. They're not selling any microtransactions like, buy car points or whatever. And you unlock like your upgrades, let's say brakes, for example. You'll unlock that category after you reach a certain car level with that particular car. The reason I keep saying that particular car, because let's say you have, one Lamborghini Huracan. And, you really like it, you build it this certain way, but you want to own another one and do something different with it. Like instead, let's say the first one you focused a lot on, like power and whatnot, and the second one you want to focus on making the car lightweight or whatever. With that new car that you get, even if car 1 is at level, 30 of 50 or whatever, that new car starts back at 1. So then you have to unlock those like category of parts, like you have to re-unlock brake upgrades for that particular car. So I kind of understand why they're doing it. Because for the longest time Forza's just been like, I got a bunch of money super fast because it's supposed to be this like fantasy of being able to drive any car you want, but there's no progression. It's just like you get money so quickly in that game, it's just like cool, something's new, I guess I'll buy it and try it out. So we'll see how that goes. I'll still probably get it because the last Motorsport I got was, like I said, over 5 years ago. So, yeah. But something that you guys might actually have input on. What did you guys think of the Avatar game that's coming out? Not a Blue People Avatar. Unfortunately, not an actual Avatar game.
Meh.
But
Oh,
Yeah,
that's our game.
I mean, are you talking about you're talking about the blue people one, right?
yeah.
Given that I did say blue people, yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
I thought he said not blue people one. It's like I'm confused. There's an Airbender one that doesn't look like a mobile game.
There is a show coming out, a live action show, but that's a different podcast.
I saw that and I was like, I don't see how this looks any different than the other like live action.
You
movie
are
that they tried.
wrong, my friend.
Going back to the
Given that
Shyamalan-a-thon.
you
I
are
don't-
wrong in that.
man,
Given that they didn't get
Drew,
white
I'm gonna
people to
tell
play
you,
Sokka
Drew,
and Katara, and they actually
Well,
got
I
an
don't
Asian
remember.
person.
And guess what? I don't remember, and you know what? I don't care because I'm not going to watch it because I
It's
watch
bad.
Avatar because it's animated. I don't give a shit that they make a live action version of it, man.
All right, different podcast.
Yeah.
Blue People Avatar.
But yeah,
Did people
Blue
give
People
a
Avatar. I mean, it looks fine. It looks a lot. I will say this much: it looks a lot better than I was expecting. But it's not really my thing.
It looks like Far Cry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's basically what it is. It's Far Cry with blue people, but like I will say the detail and like the aliens and stuff look nice. But the thing with it is just like when I was watching the gameplay, it's like, man, if this was a Star Wars game, I think I would actually be pumped for it. But since it's Avatar, I don't really care. And then lo and behold, same fucking Ubisoft Forward at the end. It's like, bam, Star Wars Ubisoft game. It's like, yeah, I'm way more pumped for that than
And I
this
clapped.
shit.
I pointed and I clapped.
I loved it. Oh my god.
I pointed and I clapped.
But yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you're a fan of like the Avatar movies, yeah, you'll probably really dig this game. But like me personally, I'm like, it looks neat. Maybe I'll give it a shot one day when it goes on sale for $2. But like, I don't. Right now, I just don't care. Mostly because I just don't care about the Avatar movies.
Same.
All right.
It's a
I was about to say.
it's a meh.
It looks better.
I just
than
wanted to hear if
expected,
anyone really cared.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
no.
said, it looks better than expected, and props to Massive. But it's kind of scary to think that like, oh yeah, you're doing the big Avatar game by the end of this year, and then the very next year you got to release a Star Wars open world game. Like that's a lot on your plate, bro.
Yeah. All the trillion-dollar companies that they're taking the IPs of. Well, I think that's about everything. Because we've talked about a lot, and we are almost at 2 hours at this point. So I'm going to call it quits there. But before we wrap up, we have some fresh picks of the week. And we might even have some rotten ones as well. This is what we talk about where we've been playing, watching, or listening to in the weeks in between. And because he had to wait so patiently to actually say the games he was excited about, I'm going to throw it to Robert first to tell him about what have you been playing, watching, or listening to, my friend Robert.
See, I have been playing Pikmin 3. Next month, Pikmin 4 is going to come out, and I never finished 3. And that one I should have finished a long time ago, given I got it when I got my Wii U. Yeah, remember that freaking thing.
Wow, yeah. Or is not
So
ever
I've been playing through that, finally finished it. I thought it was a really good time. Pikmin is like this real-time strategy game by Nintendo, where you command little onion plant dudes called Pikmin, and they like take down like bugs, carry stuff back. You're basically trying to. The premise of Pikmin 3 is you're 3 different explorers going out to find food for your planet because due to a lack of planning, they were running out of food, and they refused to eat things like vegetables and stuff. So they're very picky eaters. So you go to this planet to get like sustenance to bring back to the home planet, and then the ship malfunctions. You have to get the crew back, and then get your like cosmic key part to get your ship to go back home. So you're basically just trying to like survive day to day, collect food so you don't run out and starve to death. And yeah, it sounds dark, but it's a pretty comfy time, all things considered. Not too terribly difficult, but some interesting puzzles and whatnot. Lots of replay value with both a challenge mode, some additional story if you're playing the Switch version, and if you just want to like play the harder difficulties or just see how fast you can finish it. It's something that you could spend a few hours on a weekend on and probably finish, say about 5-6 hours, like your first playthrough, if you're not even going for all the fruit. So it's a good time. I would say it's worth checking out if you're vaguely interested in like strategy games and whatnot, and just kind of want something on your Switch.
Robert?
Since the Tears of the Kingdom hype has died down.
It'll still be, yeah, people will still be on that game for a couple weeks. But I'm gonna be honest, Robert, you might be like the first person I've ever heard that like, or at least the first person I personally know that has actually like played those games. So it's interesting.
I grew up on Pikmin. That was one of the first
Really?
games I got on the GameCube. So
Oh.
I've always played those games.
Interesting.
But most of my like experience with them has been like Pikmin 1 and 2 on like the GameCube and Wii.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, huh. Pikmin 3, and then probably soon to be Pikmin 4 whenever that comes out.
It's next month.
Yeah, okay. Then I will throw it on to Seth. Seth, what have you been playing, watching, or listening to?
I'll go after you.
Okay.
I gotta pass.
Randy, I guess.
All right.
Fuck it up.
So I have 3 things. I'm gonna just kind of rapid fire them.
Yeah, be quick with
So
them.
I went on vacation with.
Randy, before you do this, are you sure you just don't want to hold on to a couple of those for a couple of future podcasts you're on? Just
I'm about to
in
say
case?
that might be a good idea because that is like every time we were about to start, I was like, shit, I forgot about this. Usually we just 3 in one.
I'll continue to watch and see things. It'll be fine.
All right,
I'll just rapid fire. I'll rapid fire them.
Yeah.
So I went and saw. I went on vacation with my boyfriend and his lovely family.
Faster.
And one night we went to the movies, and they wanted to see this new Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I went into it with super low expectations, but was pleasantly surprised. Bowser's Jack Black's refusal to say Peach and just Peaches, it was great. Anyway,
Bowser got
also-
horny at the end.
basically.
Yeah.
Saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Wow, people, go watch that because those animated films that are like that and take so much time to make, and it's a feast for the eyes. If you can watch it in like an IMAX, do it and watch it twice. It's great, and there's a bunch of small cool references. Last thing was, wow, it was super rotten. This past weekend, I was having some drinks, and I looked over to Will, and he was also having some drinks. I was like, hey, you want to like watch a Transformers movie and make fun of it because the new one's coming out? Said sure. We started to watch Transformers the last night. Couldn't even I think we maybe got halfway through it and we just turned it off. We were like, no. It's bad. It's real bad. It's the one where they're like, yeah, the Transformers, they remember World War II? Transformers over there. You remember Merlin? That dragon? Transformers.
Transformer.
You remember Cade Yeager? Freaking what's the actor's name?
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg with Biceps for America throwing that football?
Bro, he finds 2 footballs randomly just out in the field in them. I guess, okay, to be fair, I never actually watched the movie. I just watched someone make fun of it, so I can't. According to a YouTube video.
I watched the movie. I watched them in full. I remember I was going on a flight to Japan, and I watched Age of Extinction and Last Night back to back, and I think I had actual brain rot by the end of it.
Bro, honestly, that's impressive. Seth, that is the most impressive thing you've ever told me, is that you watch those movies back to back in a full sitting.
It's why I'm immune to torture now. It's
You
because I have no
essentially,
feeling anymore.
also, like you're on a plane. You can't leave or do something else. You essentially locked yourself in and did
To
that.
be fair, I could have turned it off at any moment.
You could have, but you stuck strong
He could
with
have been
it.
free of that pain, but he just kept watching.
Yeah, like this is so like this is my character development. This is my canon event. I gotta do this. That's a
I will
Spider-Verse
say
reference.
that I did become revitalized though whenever I watched Bumblebee, like many years later, or rather 1 year later.
A good Transformers movie.
God bless that movie. It only took us like almost a whole decade before we got to an actual good one.
Bro, who would have thought you just had to put good actors and make the Transformers look like the Transformers from the show? Wild.
Yeah.
All right. Randy, is that everything?
That's it.
Yeah. All right.
That's it. That's my rapid fire.
All right. Well, normally I would go last, but Seth has made the request to go last. So I will talk about my rotten pick, which I watched literally right before coming on to this podcast. And I was really close to just coming on this podcast and just being like, you know what, guys? No, you guys are going to listen to me rant and comment around it. But we didn't do that because that'd be mean to them. I watched The Flash, and I didn't like Ezra Miller before he beat women. I don't care what his pronouns are. I don't respect him. I can already hear Randy trying to correct me. It's not that good. I'll give credit where credit is due. You know, Ezra Miller, while I don't like him as a person, and I really don't like him as an actor, he actually does have some pretty decent scenes in this. I saw him, also it's fun seeing Michael Keaton again. That's cool. And yeah, that's about it. That's all the positive things that I have about that movie. There's sometimes it's just this movie's so inconsistent in the way of like sometimes it has like literal PS2 graphics, especially at like the beginning of the movie. Like there's two scenes like very early on. One where like Barry's like saving babies from like literally ripping off a Quicksilver scene, which I get it. They are speedsters. You're gonna have scenes like that. But like literally doing the Quicksilver scene where he's saving like babies from like a hospital, and it is the ugliest fucking babies I have ever seen try to be computer generated. And then there's some other moments like later on that are just like, wow, that looks like literal PS2 graphics. That is ugly. And then there's other times where like, you know, like the speed like effects actually look kind of cool. And it actually like it legit makes Michael Keaton look like he's doing acrobatic stuff. So it's like it's just so oddly inconsistent at times, but yeah, it's just I recommend not doing it. I think I told my friends like immediately walking out, I was like 6 out of 10, and the more I thought about it, I was like, no, it got down to a 5. And as I'm talking about right now, it's like it might go to a 4. There's one scene in particular, and I'm about to spoil it for you, so there, go ahead. But it's not a major thing, but I mentioned before the podcast that yes, Nicolas Cage does randomly show up in it. For those who don't know, Nicolas Cage almost played Superman in the 90s. And there's one scene where like multiverses are colliding, and it just randomly cuts to a universe with like a mulleted Superman fighting like a spider. But here's the thing, it's not real Nicolas Cage, obviously. It is like the most CG fucking Nicolas Cage person like you'd ever. The Dead by Daylight version of him, like that's obviously like art style, like computer generated for that game, looks more like him than this. It's a very ugly Nicolas Cage, but he just shows up. He never says a word. He doesn't have a line. He just shows up like, oh yeah, there's Superman Nicolas Cage. There's some other versions of like Superman and Flash, and it doesn't matter to anything. It doesn't affect the plot at all. There's also a lot of wild inconsistencies with like the way they do time travel. I also feel like I know this is technically the first time they do Flashpoint in a movie, but I feel like I've seen Flashpoint so many times in shows and comics and TV things that I'm just like, I'm tired of Flashpoint already. I'm so bored of it. There's other stories you can do with the Flash. It feels like the most like lazy thing of just like he goes back to save his mom. I get it. Do something else, please. So it's just like, yeah, I wasn't super pleased with the Flash in this, and I'm kind of glad that this is like we're done with this version of the DCE. We're gonna go and do something different with James Gunn in the future. So that's the Flash. Maybe like
it feels like
yeah, go ahead.
So it feels like that's a movie that it's just cursed. Like everything about it is just cursed.
Well,
They
it's
pushed
been
it back so
production
many
for-
times.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been productive for over 10 years. That's usually not a good sign that anything is going to come out all sparkly.
And like, there's literally one scene in particular that like I remember watching and I was like, okay, that's the reason. There's one scene where Ezra Miller yells at younger version of Ezra Miller, and like that's the one scene where I'm like, that was actually really well acted. That was good. But then I remember thinking, I was like, is that literally the reason? Did he do that one scene and they were like, it's just too good, we can't lose it, and they just held on to this movie because of that one thing? And that's like my headcanon now. Like they had like 2 or 3 really good scenes, and they're like, we have to build a movie around this. We can't throw it away. And just the universe did not want this movie to happen, but they just kept trying and trying and trying. So, but it happened, I guess. The Flash. So yeah, that's that. Y'all got any other questions about it? Because hopefully you guys don't go see it. Maybe the only time I would say you guys should see it is if you actually come over, visit, and we'll do like a live. Randy suggested this. We'll actually like either live react or do a podcast after like getting drunk and watching this. That would be
Put
the
on
only time.
pirate hats and go art.
Yeah.
That's when you can go watch it.
So yeah,
I guess
that's the Flash.
Spider-Man. The Spider-Man Spider-Verse films still remain the goated multiverse movies.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing. I'll steal this line from Randy. If you are a very big superhero fan and you can afford 2 movie tickets this summer, go see Spider-Verse twice. Don't waste your time with Flash. Don't even waste your time with Transformers. I don't know if it's good or not. Just go see Spider-Verse twice. It's just better. It's just that good. All right, but that's the end of me.
It's a movie so good it'll make you mad.
Yeah. All right, that's the end of me though. Seth, it's your turn.
All right.
The big last one.
So I don't have a fresh pick. I have.
And that's the end of the podcast, guys. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. No, I'm joking. We're done.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Seth. Go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry for ruining your bit.
I have. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to wrap this up quickly.
My bad.
I don't have a fresh pick. Instead, I have more of a is it still fresh pick. So over the weekend, or at least my personal weekend, I went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That is not my fresh pick, although it is a good film. The thing is at the very end of the movie, it plays a song. And whenever I heard the first notes of it, the first couple of notes, I knew exactly what song it was. And it was a movie that I was already emotional at. So I'm not going to lie, I was definitely crying at this part. It was The Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine, or Florence plus the Machine.
Fantastic song.
My recommendation is to listen to Is It Still Fresh? And absolutely it is. Listen to Florence and the Machine, or Florence plus the Machine, Lungs album from 2009, because that's where Dog Days Are Over came from, or rather it's a single that came from that album. It is such a good album. I listened to it religiously whenever I was in middle school and in high school. You know that part in church where they start playing some specific song and you're supposed to like go to the altar or whatever and like do some extra praying or some shit, get extra points with God, I guess.
That's not. There's no specific moment, but that.
but you know what I'm talking about. That my equivalent is listening to any Florence and the Machine song. That's basically it. It's like, oh yeah, that's my God. I have to go answer the call. Lungs is such a good album. Florence has amazing vocals, and it's hard to describe, but all of her songs has such beautiful lyricism and poetry to them. It is like fairy tales and fables all packed down into one big emotional outburst. It's such beautiful music. I'm Not Calling You a Liar, Between Two Lungs, Cosmic Love, all these fantastic songs all bundled into this album. There's just so much like love and passion into it. And if you know anything about me and how I feel about like Hi-Fi Rush and stuff, I am obsessed whenever you could feel the love and passion come through in an art piece, and you can feel it with like Lungs and pretty much all of her work in general.
I'll say call me basic, because I mean I haven't listened to many of Florence and the Machine, and probably the biggest, I assume it's one of their biggest songs, but Hunger, that one I fucked with. That's a good song.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's one of their most popular ones, so like I said, call me basic for really.
To be fair, Dog Days is at least in my opinion, I would say is like by far their most like popular song. So like, I don't know, and so I feel like any of their songs is like a good pick, because even I don't know.
Like it's all
like nothing's a basic pick with them, I guess is what I should say.
There are no wrong picks with Florence and the Machine. Hell, even drumming is a reference to a Doctor Who villain, the Master. Like that whole fucking song is a reference to him. It's like I said, she just does like such amazing work, and she's still killing the game. I believe it's called. Oh shit. I wish I would have actually looked up her newer album that came out a few years ago, but that was a really good one too. Either way, go listen to Lungs. It was, I believe, I don't think it's her debut album, but it was like her second one that she did with her band, and it's just beautiful from like beginning to end. You will not walk away without a favorite song from that album. I guarantee it.
All right.
So yeah, that is my fresh pick.
All right. Well, sounds good. And like we say, fresh doesn't mean it's like fresh and new. It's just fresh to us in the sense of like that's what we've been doing and hanging out with, and that is a fantastic pick, fantastic artist. But that is the end of everything for today. So I want to thank again Seth for joining us, talking about video games and talking about some music too. I love the music pick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been holding on to that one. I hadn't really thought about Florence in a while, and man, Guardians just oof, that hit me. Also, check out Guardians. That is a good pick.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a good. I feel like we've probably talked like that was a pick in the past, but it's a good movie. Great soundtrack. I want to thank Randy for coming on and talking to us.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Majesty. Happy month. And Robert, thank you for coming on here, talking about some Persona and other anime-like games.
Always happy to weeb out.
Yeah, our resident weeb. We love him. And thank you to the most important people here, even more important than our local representative, is you, the viewer. So thank you for listening and watching. Go check out our shorts. And thank you. Stay safe out there.